tell us what's been Jeff Newton's project and what
Hmm.
Coastal Vineyard Care is about.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, kind of long story, but so I did 2 degrees in economics at the University of California at Santa Barbara, and that second degree really was kind of focused on agricultural economics. And so, as my master's thesis, I did, a computer, I developed a computer model that forecasted demand for irrigation water. And so, from that master's program, I was able to get a job working for the California Department of Water Resources in Sacramento. And I was working there with a couple of master's level econ guys, and then one of the guys that we work with had a PhD. So we were doing the same thing, developing these really large scale linear programming models to forecast demand for irrigation water. And so I did that for about 2 years, and it was interesting, but it wasn't compelling for me. At the same time, I was living in, Davis is very, very close to Sacramento. It's about 12 miles away. So I was living in Davis, but meeting, uh, you know, uh, a lot of young organic farmers that were living, that had been to the university or were working nearby the university. And so I'd go out to their farms and one by one, I just realized, oh man, this is what I want to do. This is the job that I want to have. I want to do not agricultural economics. I want to do farming. And so I quit my job at the state and went and worked on an organic vegetable farm near Davis. And when I say worked on a vegetable farm, I mean I was hoeing weeds with the farm workers. We were harvesting everything from strawberries to peppers to melons to uh, uh, corn and kind of everything in between. So I worked there for about 8 months and super hard. I couldn't speak a word of Spanish. I didn't really know anything about farming, and so that was kind of the beginning for me. But at the end of that, I realized that boy, this is I like this. Super hard work, but I liked it and wanted to pursue it. So ultimately, because I was living right there in Davis, uh, you know, I hadn't settled on wine grapes, but what I had settled on, because I was an undergrad and then grad student at UCSB, Santa Barbara is an amazing place. It's a beautiful place, incredible place. And so I thought, well, shoot, I want to do agriculture, but I want to do it in Santa Barbara. So how do I figure that out? So uh, I drove down to Santa Barbara, looked around. It looked like there was obviously many vegetables there, strawberries. But what piqued my interest was, either avocados or wine grapes. When I'd worked for a really large farm management company in West Sacramento after I worked for the state, and we farmed 10,000 acres in California from Chico all the way down to Porterville. And so I was in charge of all the budgets for that company. And so the commodity, and we were farming everything. We farmed cotton, processing tomatoes, rice, almonds, walnuts, prunes, and 1,000 acres of wine grapes. And it was the wine grapes that had the highest rate of return, making the most amount
Interesting.
of money. So when I made my little trip down to Santa Barbara, I realized, well, they've got avocados there, but there's wine grapes were just beginning to happen really in Santa Barbara, and so I remembered that the rate of return for grapes was higher than at the time anything else that we had farmed in at Ag Industries in Sacramento. So and I was living in Davis, right across the street from the university. So I really like 5 minute walk to Wixon Hall, which was the viticulture department. Uh, so I wandered over there and knocked on the chairperson's door and said, "Hey, listen, this is my story. I've got these degrees in economics. I've worked in agriculture. I want to, I want to learn about grapevines so I could go find a job in Santa Barbara. So he said, well, that sounds like a pretty good story. So he walked me down the hallway and they signed me up for that master's program that day. So in any event, I, did work. I was there for 4 quarters at Davis. I took all the classes in viticulture. I didn't take classes in enology. It was all viticulture. So it was going to be about a farming project for me. And after those, I also took classes because I'd never really taken, agriculture classes. So I took all the classes that you take for a bachelor's degree in plant science. So irrigation management, soil science, entomology, plant pathology, all of that stuff. And that was like really super good for me. The viticulture was important, but all that was important, and really it helped me as my career kind of developed. So I was 4 quarters there, and then was able to find a job at Santa Maria. You know where Santa Maria is? Just north of Santa Barbara,
Right. Yeah.
about an hour or so. And so I worked for a really large vineyard management company there for about 2 years, actually. And then the owner of that company gave me an option. He said, "Okay, you can work for me as an assistant vineyard manager in Santa Maria, one of the branches, Sierra Madre, or I could help you get started with a couple of small ranches in the San Ynez Valley that needed help." And so I'm pretty independent. I jumped at that. I wanted to be on my own basically and get started on my own. So I started in 1983 in November. I started with the 3 little farms in the San Ynez Valley, 3 little vineyards. One was about 30 acres, one was 3 acres, one was 10 acres. So pretty small. So with me and 4 or 5, Hispanic farm workers. And that was the beginning for me. And it was kind of the beginning of Santa Barbara County also. So, year by year, I worked hard and I was interested in wine. So I met many, many winemakers, and knowing winemakers, I realized helped me sell grapes. If I knew what they needed and what they were looking for, it really helped me sell grapes. So kind of this news got around. I was, in my 20s or 30s. I was early 33 when I started. And so every year I picked up additional vineyards. We were planting new vineyards, areas that had never been planted in the San Ynez Valley. We began to plant. There were no vineyards in Happy Canyon, which is now an appellation. We planted the first and most of them there. We planted. We were like the 3rd or 4th to begin to plant in Ballard Canyon, and now that's an appellation and quite famous for many of the vineyards there. And then probably planted 1,000 acres in Santa Rita Hills before it was ever Santa Rita Hills, beginning when there were only a couple, 2 or 3 vineyards in Santa Rita Hills. So, fast forward 30, 40 years later, we're now farming like 5,500 acres of grapes on over 100 different properties. So at that, as I got bigger and bigger, by the time I got to 500 acres, I just couldn't do it by myself anymore. I realized I had plenty of helpers, but I needed kind of a bit more professional help. So I'd helped
technical knowledge, right? You need
technical knowledge, yeah, but also there's many aspects to farming. Some people are specialists at certain things and others. So I was really good with the crews. I was really good with the viticulture, and I was pretty good with the business. But what I was not good at was the mechanical side. So I was not a mechanic. I couldn't rebuild engines. I couldn't fabricate equipment and stuff. And I wasn't particularly good with computers either. So there was a fellow that I helped plant a vineyard for in Ojai, which is a small town, south of Santa Barbara. And he did just a terrific job. So I kind of coached him through planting a vineyard. And so in the third year, it was his first harvest in Ojai. And I said, hey, listen, I need help down here, and I know you would be perfect. And he said, well, I want to do one harvest here first. And, I said, okay, well, I'm going to ask you next year. Next year came around, and I said, okay, I'm going to ask you one more time. But if you can't help me, I'm going to be looking for somebody else. So he joined me, Larry Fink, and then we worked together for 20 years. And he really helped build my business. He was really good at equipment, and he was really good at computers. So, my strengths, where I was weak, he was strong, and then vice versa. And so that helped us, kind of catapult into, additional acres, more acres. So the 500 acres became 1,000, and then 1,500 acres, and then we took on a couple more partners. Ruben Solorzano, who's maybe one of the best grape farmers in California, started with me in 1988. Didn't know, and basically, as he said, I hopped the fence, and in 88, couldn't speak English, didn't know anything about vineyards. So we coached him along. He's now one of the top vineyard managers in California. So he's a partner now. And then Ben Mers, who had finished a degree at Cal Poly in ag business management in 2001, called me up and said, hey, listen, I hear you're the guy to work for in the San Ynez Valley. So I hired him. He called me, and I told him, hey, listen, we don't really, we can't afford anybody right now. I don't really need anybody right now. And so he hung up, I hung up, and he called me back a day later and said, listen, I really want to work for you. So, how do we make this work? So I called Larry and said, hey, listen, I'm not going to tell this kid no twice. So I called Ben back, hired him. And so he's worked for CVCA since 2001 and planted many, many vineyards. And he also is a partner. So, and then subsequently, about 6 years ago, we picked up another fella who had a degree in viticulture from Cal Poly, also had an MBA, and had worked for Gallo, the largest winery in the world, for 10 years. So we brought him on, and so he's a partner there as well. So there's 4 of us. I'm kind of backing off now because of my age, but those guys are moving forward. So they're smart. They work like crazy, and they're aggressive, and so they're continuing to build the company. But the company, and I was always interested in high quality wine, and it became pretty clear to me when I was interested in agriculture to start with, but as I began to do viticulture, I realized, wow, this is not just it's not just growing broccoli. It's not,
Right.
it's not fruit on the truck and that's the end of it. There's life after the harvest. And so I made a point of learning about wine, took wine appreciation classes, tasted a lot of wine with winemakers, very specifically. I've traveled to every great wine region in the world, in Italy, France, Spain, Argentina, New Zealand, been to some of the best wineries on earth, tasted in some of the best wineries on earth, really. So that's all been a huge part of my wine education. And I also have friends. One of our great friends was a wine importer from mostly France. And so he kind of sold his business, importation business, to a large wine distributor. And in any event, long and short of it is he's got a wine cellar that's like to die for. And so, one of my major wine educations has been like basically out of his wine cellar. The other day we had dinner together, and he brought a Barolo from northern Italy, from Sandroni, who's like just one of the outstanding producers there. So being able to taste those wines, I've been to Chateau Pertus and Chateau Margaux and Sassicaia and Ornellaia and many of the great producers of Burgundy and in Bordeaux and stuff. So that has been just a big part of my education. So there I am, and along the way, viticulture has changed dramatically in the last 30 years. It's like working in a tech industry. It changes. So, there's all kinds of new techniques, and then also just mechanization. And so, as the labor costs become more and more expensive in California, we've had to mechanize. So maybe half of our farms are very large. The vineyards are really large. They're mechanically pruned, mechanically thinned, mechanically leafed, and mechanically harvested. But there are other vineyards that are just super high quality on special sites. These are wines that are selling for $50, $100, $150 a bottle. And those wines require completely different. It's a lot of handwork, and very specific regimens around what we could do to improve wine quality and stuff around shoot thinning and shoot positioning and thinning and green drop and wing removal and multiple harvests in a given vineyard. So there's two styles of viticulture really. It's like very large scale mechanical, and then very small scale ultra premium viticulture. And so both are kind of I have a personal preference for smaller vineyards and the higher quality, more kind of input style of viticulture. So that's my background, and I've been doing this for 40 years, and I'm not bored one bit. I can't get enough, really. It's like I'm addicted to this, and I love teaching people that are interested in learning. One of the reasons I'm super interested in Mexico and in the Valle de Guadalupe is in California, labor costs are becoming so high now that we cannot afford. We're reaching break-even points. We can charge a certain amount for our fruit, but the costs of production are like matching the revenues, and so it's becoming clear that you need to go to places to do really high-end viticulture, which requires lots and lots of labor. The labor costs have to be lower. So, Mexico is just natural for me. The potential there is just phenomenal. And then, the wines in the Valle de Guadalupe, I was there like 25 years ago, and it's not impressive, basically. But you go to the wines there now are quite good, very, very good. But this is a little bit like Santa Barbara was when I started. It was not a good area. All my friends, all my classmates at Davis were going to Napa and Sonoma. And when I said I was going to Santa Barbara, they said, "What are you doing that for? That's a foolish move." And in the end, it was the best move because my learning curve was way steeper than theirs, and my depth of knowledge around viticulture, I think is up there. It's quite high. But I love sharing it.
That's amazing, and thank you so much for sharing it. And your story is really inspiring, Jeff. It's not every day you hear someone with a double major in economics not afraid to get their hands dirty in the soil doing the actual work. And I mean, you're a clear example of how hard work pays off. Now you started with your own company. You became an entrepreneur, and you just scaled it all, and it's amazing. It's amazing, and thanks for sharing with
Well,
us.
it is interesting. Starting at the bottom. That's how the very first organic farm I worked on. I was working with the farm workers, and then when I began working in Santa Maria in the vineyards, I was working with the farm workers. So I was doing from the bottom up basically, and what I still say to this day, that is the best way to learn. It's not the most fun way to learn, but it's the best way. You learn every single detail from pruning, shoot thinning, suckering, blah blah, up. You know what it's like, what's required, how difficult it is, and many times. So at CVCA, at my company, Coastal Vineyard Care Associates, uh, there are four partners. They're all very significant vineyard managers, very, very good vineyard managers. But we have another 8 vineyard managers as well. And like 4 of those are from Mexico. Um, and the other 4 are from basically graduates from a place like either Fresno State or Davis or Cal Poly. But it turns out that the gringos tend to come into the middle of vineyard management. They don't start at the bottom. They miss that whole 2, 3, 4, 5 year apprenticeship. And for me, they are not as complete. They're not as complete vineyard managers as our Hispanics that started from the bottom. They were field workers first, and then became irrigators or tractor drivers or crew foremen, and then be assistant vineyard managers and supervisors, and then after it takes 7 or 8 years to learn this, to learn all the details. And it's every year there's another curveball, and you learn a little bit more, a little bit more. But to learn the subject, it's impossible in a year. When I first started, I thought, oh boy, I want to be the best vineyard manager in Santa Barbara County. My first year, like, are you kidding? So year 2 rolls around, I'm going, okay, maybe it's going to take 3 years. Year 4 rolls around. Oh, maybe it's going to take 5, but it's around 7 years to kind of get it in a groove. And so anyway, I think it's super important to begin at the bottom, to begin with the farm workers, to begin with the handwork. And it makes a difference. You will be a better vineyard manager if you do that.
Yeah, that's great, solid advice, and thanks for sharing that with us. And Jeff, I have a question. What would you say is your current today? I can imagine all the challenges of growing the company into what it's become. I mean, you're dealing with nature, so that of course is a great challenge. Plus the whole business side. So those are 2 great challenges that brought you to today. But today, as of today, what's your biggest challenge today? What's the problem that you wake up every morning thinking, I have to solve this?
Yeah. So I'm mostly interested. I love the growing. Yeah, it's just a part of who I am. It's the part of viticulture that I love the most. So I love figuring out ways to make to grow plants, to find sites that are suitable, sites that are going to be exceptional. And so just kind of at this point, my knowledge of soils and climate and viticulture itself, being able to choose varieties that are going to work, and rootstocks and combinations of clones and such. So that has been that's a big strength that I have for sure, and that's what I love. I mean, the other part of it, it's a business. It's a big business, and so little by little, and you have to make a profit. You have to make more revenues than you spend. That's where my econ came in. That's the economics helped me kind of keep the business going, kept me in, kept me. I was able to pay my rent and buy food. And in the beginning, it was pretty slim pickings. I was not making much money and I'd left a job in economics where the salaries were significant for basically a farm worker salary in the beginning. But to build a business, to keep it becoming more successful, it requires a whole team. So we have a large office staff. There's probably 25 people working in our office. Some are pest control advisors. Others are viticultural technical people. They keep track of a lot of weather data from our weather stations. They are experts in mapping, GIS, GPS mappers, really, really important, and plus all of our vineyard managers. But also there's the business aspect. And so as the business gets bigger and bigger, you start with bookkeepers, and then step up into controllers, and then you have CFOs and COOs, and so it becomes a business, and there's lots of money. This past week, for instance, our payroll, we had 1,000 people pruning grapevines, and so each one of those 1,000 people has to get paid every week. So we're cutting 1,000 checks every single week, and we have a HR director who kind of makes sure that we had 3 or 4 safety officers, and the HR guy kind of overall that, and then our head accounting, head of accountants and such. So that part is important for sure. You need to know where financial statements are really important. Every month we see a financial statement, so we know what our profitability is looking like. And then choosing new accounts. We're constantly, we lose properties, people die, or they sell their ranches. So we're constantly, finding new projects, so new developments. So business development is huge, and so we're always, like we call it, fishing. We're always fishing for new business, and so that's a big part. It was a very big part of my job. At least 20% of my time early on, it's probably the first 20 years, was business development, finding new clients, really. So it's a big project.
Oh, yeah.
Super project, super interesting, many different aspects.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts, like you say, huh?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, totally, but totally great, yeah.
yeah. No, it really sounds like you're passionate about what you do, and
Totally.
you can see.
So the job I had in economics was interesting, but there was no passion around it.
I see.
And as I began to meet, young farmers in Davis, I could just see the passion in their face, in their eyes, in their hands, their bodies. Really, they would just really like glow in some ways. I go, oh, that's what I want. That's what I want. So this was, farming for me it was a fantasy job, complete fantasy job. It should not have worked out. I should have gone bankrupt years ago, but it's still, there was plenty of passion in it for me, and that's what fueled me, and it really allowed me to kind of make it through the tough years and into I think we have a very successful company. We have the largest vineyard management company in Santa Barbara County, and if we were to work in Napa, which we've had several offers up there, we work with many different consultants, probably 2 or 3 consultants from Napa, vineyard consultants. And they've said that if you started a business in Napa, you'd be among the top 5 vineyard managers, not just in terms of size, but in terms of the quality of service that we would provide. So
Congratulations,
pretty
Jeff.
cool.
That's congratulations, because
that's pretty cool.
That hard work has shown. That's amazing.
But it's still about the passion, and still, I just as I told you and Nico, basically, I'm supposed to be retired. My wife wants me to be retired.
Hey, Hey,
That would not work out for me.
you can retire on a vineyard, huh?
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No,
But
it's
it's
amazing.
I like to I'm interested in sharing that knowledge too. And that's why we're having this conversation basically. So I'm not a professional educator. But if someone was interested in learning about viticulture, I would be a good person to talk to.
A great person to talk to. I really hope everyone that's listening, all students, please take notes. Please take notes from Jeff and check out the website and resources and everything, because this is all very good information, very good advice for up and coming bit of viticulturist. Anyone who wants to make good wine has to know that you have to start at the grape. So you know what better way to learn this craft than from the masters. And
No, it's
thanks
true.
again.
It's true. I learned from the masters, and and was very uh, you know, it was an amazing. It's amazing to find mentors, and no one person. You need those mentors as you're making your way into the field for sure.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And Jeff, well, sorry, a little pause here, but are you good on time? What's your? I don't want to keep you
How about like 10
too
more
long.
minutes?
All right. Okay. So how's this question? Getting a little more technical. How do you onboard a client? Let's say someone calls you and, hey, Jeff, I have this vineyard. We have questions, or what's more common in your company? Do they ask you for vineyards that are already established, or more
Yeah.
for someone wanting to start a vineyard?
Yeah.
What's your
Well,
process like?
yeah. So, people usually contact us. So you could see us on our website, Coastal Vineyard Care Associates, and check out. There's the four partners there, and there's our huge team. And but how it usually happens, we don't advertise really, never advertised, but people hear about us. If you're interested in, buying a vineyard property or planting a vineyard property, we usually get a call, either a call from the owner themselves, uh, uh, or an attorney that's representing the owners, but people generally contact us that way. And then we have, arrange a meeting, come to the office, or we meet them at the vineyard site or whatever. And probably half of the time it's an existing vineyard. It's already there, and so we give a prospective client, list of our services, a list of our costs, what our pricing is, um, and then we draw up contracts. So we have a contract for every one of our owners. So, but others come to us and say, "Hey, I've got a potential property that I want to develop, and can you come and take a look at it?" For me, those are the really great uh, projects, because um, over the years we planted. I don't know how many vineyards I planted, but it's at least 100, and in many different locations, many different climates, many different soil types. And so every time you plant a new ranch, it's a little bit more information about what it takes, what specific soil types, and what specific climates will make the best wine. And so those are the projects I love the most, because people, a person. We had a winemaker call me a couple weeks ago. He said, "Hey, I've got an owner. One of my partners has a 150-acre ranch in a part of California, and would you come and look at it?" So I drove on to the ranch, and I knew right away this was going to be a killer project, and it would make great wine. And then when we did our soil evaluation, our backhoe pits to evaluate the soils and take soil samples and photographs, I knew right away that those soils were special in California, and it was going to be a high end project. So those are So then you start just clicking away. Okay, what variety are we going to plant? What clones of that variety? What's this trellis type going to be? This is a pretty hot region, so I want a canopy that's fluffed up a little bit. I want vertical shoot position, but I want longer cross arms to protect the fruit, the Syrah and Grenache. And so that's how those projects go. And then you never know how good the project's going to be until you make the wine, right? So you spend 3 years, you plant it, you train it the next year, second year, third year, you get a little fruit, but it's not really till the fourth or fifth year that you're making wine, and then you got to wait another year or two. So you're 5 to 7 years into these projects before you really know whether they're good or great or not.
Or not. That's scary.
We don't really. I mean, our game is good enough now, so we don't we don't plant bad projects.
Yeah,
That's why people call us.
it's all about the quality.
Yeah. But I can go to many, because I've seen great vineyards and great vineyards that are producing great wine all over the world. I can be in foreign places. I can be in places other than California. I can be in Oregon or Washington or Bolivia or Peru, and be able to spot a good location, a good site.
Yeah, it's become
It's intuition.
Another side. Yeah,
it's intuition. I like to say intuition is not really intuition. It's about lots of experience. But when I'm on a ranch, when I drive onto a ranch for the first time, I get a vibe.
Okay.
It's a vibe, and yeah.
Well, what do you feel when you go in there? Like, is it the air, the terroir, right? You get a feel for it.
The terroir, the soil, the soil types, the landscape, how the slopes of the land, also just the climate. You have to know a lot about. We do a lot of data loggers, so when we're investigating a property, we want to know how warm it is relative to other locations, and so we do put out data loggers and weather stations and stuff.
Interesting, super interesting. Yeah, that's amazing. So it's science. It's all it's viticulture.
It's science. It's two things. It's science. There's a big science backdrop to this, but there's also an art about it, and maybe that's why it's fascinating. Is that you can never know everything, and so putting the art part together with the science is really where you get good results.
Yeah, the best wine, huh?
Best wine.
Best wine. Thanks a lot, Jeff. Thank you so much for sharing all this
Daniel.
knowledge.